What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it looks like it might be that time of year again. Do you know, we always talk about directs at certain times in the year based on history and everything. Well, we all pretty much expect something in September, I think, just because of how it generally takes place every year at this time when we have an indie direct and then weeks later we have a full direct. Well, we're now seeing information coming out about GameStop having several listings or SKUs or SKUs set up in their system for Switch games. I'm going to go over that with you guys a little bit here as I managed to talk to a few people from GameStop just to, I guess, find a bit more out about what these SKUs actually mean. And then we're going to take a look at a PlayStation 5 patent slash dev kit slash system. It's a very, very weird looking thing, but we're going to go over it because it's so ridiculous to look at. We got to talk about it at least some. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure to like button, it does help out, and get subscribed so you can keep up to date on all the gaming news that takes place. And we do this every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. And we're actually going to start today with Grid Autosport. Now, Grid Autosport is going to the Switch, and it tends to be bigger news when a simulation racing game goes to the Switch because there's not a lot of simulation racing games. Even though this one might be a bit more arcadey, it's still a bigger deal when a more realistic racing game goes to the Switch, and there is some information that's getting out there now, but for the most part, it's been pretty quiet around this game. In fact, people have been asking things like, is it physical or digital? Will there be performance modes? Well, this is what they had to say on Twitter. The crowds on iOS are only static on the oldest supported phones. For Switch, the crowds and frame rate depend on if you've set the game to performance mode, 60 frames per second, or graphics mode, 30 frames per second. You choose, and then from there, they say it's digital only, at least for now, and that's Feral Interactive. So at this point, Grid Autosport, I assume, is going to just pop up on the eShop because I think it's supposed to come out in September. So most likely we'll hear about it coming out like a week before or something, and it'll pop up. But the idea of performance and graphics mode is a good thing. I would like to see more and more developers do this for the Switch. So if you don't mind that lower frame rate, you can enjoy the visuals, or maybe you don't really care as much about how clean the image looks. You just want it to run as smooth as possible. And for a racing game, 60 frames per second is pretty mandatory, I would say. For the most part, you can get away with it in some games. Like, I think we got away with it in Drive Club and some Forza Horizon games. But yes, Grid Autosport, look for that next month. Digital only, though. Also, since we've had Gamescom going on, we've been seeing gameplay for a couple of games that people have been wondering more about. Biomutant, for example, was on display there in a gameplay video, but one that people seem very interested in, and it caught me a little off guard when it was announced, but people seem very excited for the SpongeBob game, like the remake slash remaster. Still not really sure what I guess we define it as, but it looks pretty good in the gameplay that they've shown. This was actually part of Gamescom, and you can see it here. This is pre-alpha footage. I want to stress that, as some of the animations look a little funny, but visually I think it looks pretty good. This is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Of course, this is coming out at some point. They really haven't told us a release date yet. It seems to be coming out on all platforms. And yes, this is the old SpongeBob game from like the early 2000s that maybe you played on something like the PS2 or the GameCube or something. Yeah. They're bringing it back. Most likely you already know that, but it's pretty cool to see the gameplay, and I'll leave a link down below if you want to watch it in full. It's fairly lengthy, I would say, in terms of gameplay, but keep in mind, like I said, pre-alpha footage. Don't judge it too much yet. We're still waiting on just a release date in general, so I still think it's going to be a little while, but at least we have some gameplay to see what it actually looks like. Oh, also, do you remember Mii Evil? Yeah, I think a lot of people forgot about that one. It's out at the end of October 25th, and Sony put out some information on their blog, more so in depth about it, although they did say it takes from Dark Souls. I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or something, but I think we've gotten kind of bored of the whole, it's the Dark Souls of this genre, but they do say that if you were a fan of the original, much of that original is still intact, and we do have some gameplay footage and stuff that we've seen, and it's looking better as they've gone along. It's still not going to be a massive release for Sony. It's going to sell for $30 physically even, which, you know what, I'm okay with that. That's pretty much telling me that it's not viewed as like this big time, AAA release or anything, but I'm okay with that. The original Mii Evil, I played some when I rented it, but I never got as into it, and I am interested to check it out. It's coming out technically at a good time, closer to Halloween, because it still has that appeal, right? That spooky appeal and everything. But it is, at least I think, looking like it's gonna be pretty fun at that price point. And they also said that the soundtrack and everything has been re-recorded to, I guess give it a more modern tone and everything. But I am looking forward to it, so hopefully people don't forget, because I think it's going to get lost at that time. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with this whole thing about Nintendo Switch SKUs that have supposedly been leaked from GameStop. I can say, talked to some other people from GameStop that were able to message me about this information. That is indeed in the system. Like, that is there. It's 12 different available SKUs that are currently in GameStop system without any titles or anything attached to them. Now, this was first brought to my attention by YouTube channel Papagino, talking about how he had pictures sent over of the computer system like that. And yeah, that technically happens generally ahead of some kind of event. They'll have placeholder SKUs in their system. Amazon has been pretty bad about this as well, where people have been able to find those. But when I saw this, I said, well, maybe I can get a hold of some people who currently are at GameStop right now, and maybe they can tell me if those are actually in the system. And I can tell you, yes, they definitely are in the system. Had 3 different people message me saying, yes, they are there. And one person actually just put it up on Twitter. You can see it here, which was kind of funny. But yes, that one's from Lord Warwick, who said that this has actually been a thing for a little while now. In fact, they had papers that were dating back to the 30th of July with the 12 different SKUs available there. So apparently, this has been there for a little while. Some people have actually told me it's been there since, like, I think after E3 even. So at times, these SKUs can stay in the system, according to one person, for quite a while. I mean, you could have something like the Switch Mini, or I'm sorry, the Switch Lite, sit in the system at a $200 price point as an available SKU for months, even a year. It's something that isn't uncommon, I should say, to see these in there, but they do generally, well, they signal some kind of announcement. And we know what generally happens in September, or at least weeks after an indie direct like we've seen, and then we go into the fall and boom, there's a full direct. So could there possibly be 12 different games at $60 that are going to get announced? Yeah, it's fairly possible. I mean, look, a direct that takes place in the first half of September, I don't think would surprise anyone. And in fact, I think it would surprise people if there wasn't one in September at this point. I'm not saying that there absolutely is one, but it would at least make sense. And for GameStop to have those SKUs in the system also makes sense with how they'll leave them in there for a while. I'm gonna be interested to see if they start popping up on Amazon. And then we, of course, have general rumors start up about a direct happening. Either way, though, it looks like something most likely is gonna take place going into the fall from Nintendo, as usual. Next up, let's talk about this PlayStation 5 system leak patent thing. The system is really funny looking. I think I have an idea of what it actually is, and if it's something we could see, I'll just show it to you. There's so many images of it, but here's the general idea. Yeah, that's apparently what Sony has patented as, I guess, a system, which would probably be, I mean, what's the only system they really release for gaming and entertainment? Yes, generally a PlayStation. And it's weird. It looks like this V shape. I don't really know what else to make of it. Here's the thing about these systems. By the way, this was reported by Tech Radar citing Let's Go Digital, and there were several slides and images of this machine that Sony seems to have patented, and the Sony electronic device was granted August 13th after applying for a patent back in May of this year, with several officials from Sony and their name on the patent. So it does look like something they've spent some time with. And looking at this device, I would say it's probably just a concept. I would be surprised if this is what the PS5 actually looked like. Most likely, I would say the best case scenario, this is a development kit of some kind, of dev kit. And the reason I say that is because the number of USB ports, which you can see here, there are quite a few of them on there, right? How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That appears to be 6 different USB ports. Yeah, I don't think they would ship that many in something like an actual consumer product. And it looks so ridiculous. It doesn't really fit with Sony's mindset currently, which is to release a device alongside Microsoft, even a device that looks sleek and that, as we've heard before from companies, it basically melts into your entertainment center, right? It's something you don't see as much, doesn't stick out. That's kind of, I think, the idea. This looks absolutely insane. I mean, think about, what was it, the Mad console? I don't even know what happened to that thing, but the Mad console that the Project Cars 2 developers are going to release, and it looked insane. when we get these devices, we don't want them, they're not trying to make them look like toys. Ever since it became a system that is used for entertainment purposes and all kinds of stuff, they don't want it to look like as much a game machine as they do. It's just literally a box. And if you look back, we've had some crazy concepts. Look at the PlayStation 3. The old PS3 controller looked like the boomerang, right? The big silver boomerang. That never actually happened. And we've kind of gone from more ridiculous to less ridiculous to just like basic looking. I mean, the original Xbox had a big X on it, right? The 360 looked kind of weird and out of place. And then here we are with the Xbox One X that literally is just a box that just melts into your entertainment system center. And same thing with PlayStation, where they had the PS2 with all of the ridges and stuff all over it. The PS3 looked like a George Foreman grill, and now the PS4 is very basic with a just kind of like a little slant. So it's, I would be shocked if this was actually anything other than development kit, and I don't even know why you would spend that much time developing a dev kit like that. Now, the one thing I will say, and why it could be a dev kit, is because it looks set up to really move a lot of air through it, so for heavy airflow. And if they are packing quite a bit of processing power in there for a dev kit to then work alongside debugging, for example, with PS5 games, that I could see. And that's probably what I'm going to lean towards right now, is this would be a development kit that we'd be looking at. But I'll leave a link down below in the sources, and you can go take a look at it for yourself, and then you can maybe come up with something there. Next up, let's talk about Yakuza, as we did get a pretty cool announcement for it, specifically for fans of the series are really going to get a kick out of this. And I will say up front, yes, there will be a physical copy of this. We'll get to that a bit later. But yeah, Yakuza is getting a full remaster for 3, 4, and 5, 1080p, 60 frames per second, according to Sega, and a physical copy, as you are seeing here. And it does look really, really cool. Comes with a case, by the way, which is interesting for Yakuza 5. But the way this is going to work, it's going to be released in kind of staggered release. Now, one of them is actually already out. And that's Yakuza 3, that's available right now on the PlayStation 4. The fourth game will be coming October 29th, and then 5 is going to be available February 11th, 2020. And that's when the full physical release that you're seeing here, which looks really, really nice, by the way, is going to be coming out that same day. And this is really, really cool. This is a really neat announcement. It was kind of out of nowhere. Now, it did leak technically on the PlayStation Network, and then they announced it, but I saw a ton of fans of the series go crazy. It is really cool. People love the Yakuza series, and to see all of these kind of come over, get that remastered over to the PS4, of course, 1080p, 60 frames per second, with one of them being available right now. The shadow drops, I've said before, are great. You gotta wait a little longer for 4 and then 5, but that'll give you time to play through 3 and then 4 and then 5. So I'm actually okay with the staggered release. And then, of course, I guess if you want to wait for a physical copy, it's going to be a little while, but either way, really, really, really cool for Yakuza fans. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about the Microsoft, Nintendo, kind of Sony relationships that they have, because of course Minecraft is on everything. However, Microsoft has really been looking at and even leveraging the Nintendo Switch's user base right now by moving a lot of their games over. Cuphead, for example. I mean, Minecraft, I already said that, but then most recently we've had Ori and the Blind Forest get announced. Well, Microsoft apparently says that's it. At least that's what they say. This isn't a statement to GameIndustry.biz saying, "The past year has been an exciting time for us, as we have had more than doubled the internal creative teams making up Xbox Game Studios. As these new studios transition in, we were aware of some existing commitments to other platforms and will honor them. However, going forward, these new studios will focus on making games for our platforms. We have no plans to further expand our exclusive first-party games to other consoles. We continue to believe deeply in cross-play and progression of games with the right flexibility for developers to ensure a fair and fun experience." So this is an interesting statement. Sure, I mean, technically the Outer Worlds is going to be going over to the Switch, despite obviously Obsidian now being owned by Microsoft, but Microsoft's been pretty good about the developers they pick up to be able to finish up their contracts or any plans they had previously done before signing their name away in the paper to Microsoft. But this is them saying, yeah, that's it, we're done. I don't think so. Microsoft wants to be a service software company first, and then they want to make hardware like the Xbox. Now, that's not to say they won't have exclusive games. For example, Halo Infinite I don't think will be going to anything for the foreseeable future outside of the PC and the Xbox. I don't think it's going to show up on the PS4, for example. I don't think Gears of War will. I don't think Forza will. But that's not to say that you don't see these indie-style games that end up getting made up going to things like the Switch. I think Microsoft is very interested in that. In fact, I don't think it would be too surprising to see xCloud go to the Switch. And at that point, is that necessarily the IPs that they're creating going to the Switch, or is that their service that happens to have the IPs going to the Switch? I mean, that to me would make the most sense for Microsoft to do, is shop around xCloud rather than port the entire game over. And that might not sit well with all of the user base of something like the Switch or even the PlayStation if they decide to go that far, but it's what Microsoft wants to do. They want xCloud, I think, on everything. We heard that they even approached Sony at one point about Game Pass being on PS4. So I don't think they're done at all with collaborations or porting technically. Like, I'm sure there's always the possibility that Banjo-Kazooie or Perfect Dark or GoldenEye, if they can come to that agreement, could end up on the Switch in some capacity. But I think their focus is xCloud, streaming, and putting it on everything. So no, I don't really believe Microsoft when they say this kind of stuff. I think it's more or less PR speak going into the next generation when they gotta sell a whole nother box. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This one's from Ian, and he says, if Nintendo are so against cloud saves, what's gonna happen with the Lite? Surely we want to be able to use cloud saves to be able to play our games on both OG Switch on TV and our new Lites, worrying if we can't. So that is a great question, because as far as it stands right now, if you start Animal Crossing, let's say you have a Lite and a regular, and you use the regular on the TV and your Lite is your travel Switch. If you start on the Lite, it stays on the Lite unless you do a full system transfer from one to the other, which would be tedious and of course would erase, I guess, your other Switch, or would be moving users back and forth. It's a whole thing, but unfortunately right now, it sounds like if the game just doesn't support cloud saves, you're just not moving your save over. And that is strange, because I think the whole idea of having a Lite and a regular Switch is you have a travel Switch, I guess, one that's smaller that you could take with you. But Nintendo seems to be a bit confused about this situation with cloud saves. That's what technically what they're doing is sacrificing the idea of being able to sell you a Lite and a regular Switch just because they don't want you cheating in something like Animal Crossing, which is odd, like I said before. So maybe they have something figured out. Doug Bowser was kind of hinting at that. We'll see, because we need some big update, I assume, to the online, because it hasn't changed much. You still can't message your friends. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, the like button really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's GameStop and their 12 random SKUs that have showed up in their system. However, it appears that they've been there for a little while now, at least since July 30th. I've heard as I guess long ago as E3 even. And then also let me know what you think about that PlayStation 5 patent. Do you think it's a dev kit, or do you think we're gonna get some crazy race car looking V PS5 system? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.